Discipline is not your personality. It is not proof that you are strong or weak. It is not something you either have or you do not. Discipline is a relationship your brain has with effort. And if your relationship with effort is built on punishment, shame, and delayed rewards, your brain will resist it like it resists pain. Here is the ruthless truth. Your brain is not designed to love discipline. It is designed to love safety, novelty, and fast payoffs. So if you have been trying to become disciplined by yelling at yourself, forcing yourself, and calling yourself lazy, you were never building discipline. You were building a threat response. That is why you can know exactly what to do and still not do it. Your brain is not debating your goals. It is protecting you from a feeling. The feeling is effort without reward, effort without control, effort that might end in failure, effort that might expose you, effort that might not be worth it. So today, we are going to do something different. Not motivation, not hype, not a new identity speech. We are going to trick your brain into loving discipline by changing what discipline means to your nervous system. Because the brain does not repeat what is important. The brain repeats what is rewarded. The first thing you need to understand is that your brain does not experience discipline as a concept. It experiences discipline as a sequence of micro moments. The moment you think about starting. The moment you feel friction. The moment you anticipate boredom. The moment you anticipate not being good enough. And the moment you want relief. Most people try to win discipline at the level of willpower, but willpower is the last line of defense. It is what you use when the system is bad. The real game is not willpower. The real game is association. If effort is associated with relief and pride, you will repeat it. If effort is associated with dread and self-hatred, you will avoid it. So the question is not how to become disciplined. The question is how to make your brain stop tagging discipline as suffering. Your brain is an economist. It spends energy where it expects return. It avoids energy where it expects loss. And most people have trained their brain to expect loss from discipline. They expect to feel behind. They expect to feel small. They expect to feel like it is never enough. They expect to start, struggle, and then judge themselves. So, of course, your brain would rather scroll. Scrolling is a guaranteed return. It is predictable, easy, and it gives you a hit without asking you to risk your identity. Discipline asks you to face the possibility that you could try and still not get what you want. That is why the brain fights, not because you are broken, because your brain is consistent. Now, here is the trick. You stop trying to force your brain to love discipline. You start giving your brain what it loves through discipline. You turn discipline into a delivery system for the brain's favorite experiences: progress, control, novelty, and immediate reward. You stop selling your brain a future. You start paying your brain now. This is where people get uncomfortable because they think discipline should be hard. They think if it is not painful, it is not real. That belief is a trap. Pain does not create discipline. Pain creates avoidance. What creates discipline is a loop. Cue, action, reward, identity. And if you want discipline to become automatic, you design the loop so your brain gets a reward that it can feel quickly. Not a reward in 6 months. A reward now. You do not need to love the task. You need to love what the task gives you. The feeling of being the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. The feeling of being in control of your life again. The feeling of watching your own actions match your own standards. That is dopamine. That is the brain's currency. And dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure. It is the chemical of pursuit. It is what makes you lean forward. It is what makes effort feel worth it. When people say they want discipline, what they really want is that lean forward feeling, without needing panic to create it. Because panic works. Deadline pressure works. Fear of losing works. Shame works for a while. But it creates a nervous system that only moves when it is threatened. That is not discipline. That is survival. So, if you have ever noticed you can suddenly become productive when you are scared, that is not your discipline waking up. That is your threat system taking over. And if you build your life on threat, you will eventually burn out, freeze, or rebel. The brain will demand relief. That is why people swing between obsession and collapse. Intense grind, then weeks of nothing. That is not inconsistency. That is nervous system correction. Your system is trying to balance pain. So the trick is to build discipline that your brain experiences as safe. Safe does not mean soft. Safe means predictable. It means clean. It means you can start without feeling like you are walking into a courtroom where you will be judged. A lot of people cannot build discipline because every time they start, they also start a private trial. Did I do enough? Am I doing it right? What if I fail? What if I cannot keep up? What if I prove I am not who I want to be? That trial drains dopamine. It turns effort into danger. So the first ruthless rule of discipline is this: your brain will not commit to a system that threatens your identity every day. If you want your brain to love discipline, you have to separate effort from self-worth. You have to make effort neutral. You have to make the task a task, not a verdict. Because when the task becomes a verdict, you will avoid it to avoid the verdict. This is why perfectionism kills discipline. Perfectionism is not high standards. Perfectionism is fear of being seen as flawed. So perfectionism makes starting feel like exposure. Your brain hates exposure. It wants safety. So it delays. It procrastinates. It negotiates. It looks for the perfect time. And then you feel guilty. And then you start associating the task with guilt. And now the task is poisoned. That is the loop. You want to trick your brain. You unpoison the task. You make the start small enough that it does not trigger identity threat, but meaningful enough that it creates momentum. And before you panic about small starts, understand what momentum really is. Momentum is not intensity. Momentum is repetition without resistance. The brain loves what is repeated. Repetition builds automaticity. Automaticity is the real discipline. Discipline is when you do not debate. Discipline is when you do not need to negotiate with yourself. Discipline is when your behavior happens faster than your excuses. And that only happens when the start is easy enough to begin. Because your brain hates starting more than it hates doing. Starting is the highest friction point. Starting requires switching states. Switching states is expensive. It costs attention, and it costs dopamine. So if you want discipline to feel easier, you make the state switch smoother. You reduce the friction at the beginning. Not by lowering your standards, but by lowering the cost of entry. Think of your brain like a door. Most people lock the door and then wonder why they cannot walk through it. They make the start complicated, heavy, emotionally loaded, and then they blame themselves for not being consistent. The trick is to make the door light. Make the start feel like a win before it feels like work, because wins build dopamine. Dopamine builds pursuit. Pursuit builds repetition. Repetition builds identity. And identity makes discipline feel like who you are, not what you force. Now, let us talk about why discipline feels boring. Boredom is not the absence of stimulation. Boredom is the absence of meaning in the moment. If the moment does not feel like it matters, your brain will seek a new moment. That is why people cannot stay with the boring middle. They can start, they can dream, they can plan, they can buy the notebook, they can watch the video, but they cannot stay with the middle. The middle is where you repeat without applause. The middle is where you do the same thing and it does not feel new. So you need to understand a brutal truth about the modern brain. Your brain is being trained every day by platforms that reward novelty. So discipline will feel harder than it did for previous generations, not because you are weaker, but because the environment is louder. Your attention is being auctioned. Every day you are being taught to switch, to skim, to seek. So discipline is not only a personal skill. Discipline is a form of rebellion. It is choosing a deeper reward over a faster one. But if you try to choose deeper rewards without giving your brain any immediate payoff, you lose. So you build immediate payoff into the discipline loop. And the payoff cannot be fake. Your brain can feel fake. It has to be a payoff that changes your state. Pride, relief, power, clean self-respect. And here is the most underrated payoff of all. Ending the day without disgust. A lot of people are not addicted to scrolling. They are avoiding the feeling of being alone with themselves. Discipline gives you the opposite. It gives you a clean relationship with yourself. And once you feel that, you start craving discipline because it is peace. Not because you love suffering, because you love peace. The disciplined life is not a tight life. It is a quiet life. It is a life where you are not constantly cleaning up your own avoidance. Now let us make this even more ruthless. Discipline fails when the reward is too far away and the pain is too near. Your brain discounts the future. That is normal. So if your discipline plan is built on a reward in 6 months, but the cost is felt today, you are fighting biology. You want your brain to love discipline. You bring the reward closer. You shorten the feedback loop. You create proof faster. Proof is what the brain trusts. The brain does not trust your intentions. It trusts your receipts. And this is where people misunderstand motivation. Motivation is not something you find. Motivation is something you manufacture through progress. Progress creates motivation, not the other way around. So if you are waiting to feel motivated, you are waiting for a chemical state that only arrives after movement. The trick is to move without needing motivation, by making movement cheap and rewarding. Cheap means low friction. Rewarding means immediate payoff. This is why people who look insanely disciplined often have a secret. They do not negotiate with themselves every day. They have a system. The system decides. The system removes debate. And debate is what drains you. The most exhausting part of discipline is not the work. It is the daily argument. Should I? Maybe later. I will do it tomorrow. I do not feel like it. I will do it when I have energy. That loop is the real fatigue. So, to trick your brain into loving discipline, you reduce decision points. You make the behavior more automatic by making it less dependent on mood. Mood is unstable. Systems are stable. Now, here is a key psychological switch that makes discipline addictive. You stop framing discipline as restriction. You start framing it as access. Discipline is not what you cannot do. Discipline is what you get to become. And the brain loves becoming. The brain loves status. It loves competence. It loves the feeling of rising. If your discipline only feels like you are losing things, losing comfort, losing fun, losing freedom, your brain will rebel. But if discipline feels like gaining power, gaining clarity, gaining skill, gaining respect, gaining control, your brain will lean in. So you do not sell your brain discipline. You sell your brain a self-image it wants. Not a fantasy, a real self-image. The person who does not collapse. The person who does not need chaos to move. The person who does not need a crisis to become sharp. That is an identity your brain will work for. Because the brain is always protecting identity. If your identity is fragile, discipline feels threatening. If your identity is strong, discipline feels like alignment. So the question becomes, what identity does your brain protect right now? For many people, their brain protects the identity of being overwhelmed, because overwhelmed gives them an excuse that removes shame. Or it protects the identity of being special, because special means you should not have to do boring repetition. Or it protects the identity of being the victim of circumstances, because victim means you do not have to risk failure. These identities are not moral flaws. They are survival strategies, but they keep you undisciplined. So the trick is to change what your brain gets from undisciplined behavior. Right now, your avoidance is rewarded. It rewards you with relief. It rewards you with distraction. It rewards you with the removal of pressure. That is why it repeats. So discipline cannot compete by being pure. Discipline has to compete by offering a better reward, a cleaner reward, a reward that does not come with self-disgust. This is why the cleanest way to build discipline is to make discipline the fastest route to relief, not the slowest. Most people use avoidance for relief. Disciplined people use action for relief. They train the brain to experience action as the way out of anxiety, the way out of spiraling, the way out of stuckness. That is why they look calm, because their nervous system trusts their actions. When you do not trust your actions, your nervous system stays tense. It feels like your life is unstable. Discipline stabilizes the internal world. That is why it feels like power. Now, let us talk about the part no one wants to admit. Your brain does not love discipline. It loves identity-based rewards. So, you make discipline part of your identity without using cringe affirmations. You do it with proof. You do it with a small promise you keep repeatedly until your brain starts to trust you again. Trust is built through consistency, and consistency is built through small wins. A lot of people try to rebuild self-trust with huge goals. And then they fail. And then they prove to themselves they cannot be trusted. And then discipline becomes even harder. So you want the opposite. You want a promise that is almost impossible to break, because you are not training intensity. You are training trust. Once trust exists, intensity becomes easier. If you do not have trust, you will always need pressure. So discipline is really self-trust engineering. And when you build self-trust, you start loving discipline, because discipline becomes the way you feel safe with yourself. Now, there is another reason discipline fails. People are trying to force discipline while their inner world is chaotic. They are trying to do deep work while their attention is fragmented. They are trying to build a new life while they are still addicted to microdopamine. They are trying to do hard things while their nervous system is still scanning for threats. And then they call themselves lazy. But what is happening is more precise. Their brain is overloaded. Overload reduces executive control. That is why you can be disciplined on some days and useless on others. It is not morality, it is load. When load is high, the brain chooses low-effort options. So to trick your brain, you also reduce load. You stop carrying unnecessary decisions. You stop letting random opinions hijack your state. You stop wasting attention on signal economies. And you start protecting your brain's bandwidth like it is money. Because it is. Bandwidth is the currency of discipline. If you have no bandwidth, you will not be disciplined. So, disciplined people do something that looks boring, but is actually ruthless. They protect their attention. They say no more often. They disappoint people more often. They stop being available to chaos. And the reward is massive. The reward is execution. Most people do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because their attention is being stolen. So the psychology of loving discipline is the psychology of loving your own attention. You stop giving it away. Now, let us make this practical without turning it into a cute routine speech. When you sit down to do the thing, the real enemy is not the task. The real enemy is the moment you try to escape discomfort. Discomfort is where discipline is born. But discomfort does not have to be dramatic. It is often subtle. It is the urge to check your phone, the urge to switch tabs, the urge to get a snack, the urge to reorganize, the urge to perfect the plan, the urge to wait until you feel ready. Those are escape impulses. Your brain is trying to regulate. It is trying to return to ease. So, to trick your brain into loving discipline, you build a new association. You make discomfort mean progress. You make discomfort mean you are inside the growth zone. You make it a signal of correctness, not a signal of danger. And when you reinterpret discomfort as correctness, your brain stops panicking. It stops treating effort as a threat. This is why some people look unbothered while they work. They are not more motivated. They are more accurate. They do not dramatize discomfort. They do not treat friction as a reason to quit. They treat friction as the price of becoming. Now, let us talk about the darkest part of the discipline conversation, the part that makes this whole topic go viral in your body. A lot of people say they cannot be disciplined, but the truth is, they are disciplined. They are disciplined at avoiding pain. They are disciplined at repeating patterns that keep them small. They are disciplined at checking, at scrolling, at delaying, at staying in the familiar. That is discipline too. It is just discipline serving the wrong identity. So you are not trying to create discipline from nothing. You are redirecting discipline. You are taking the same consistency you use to escape, and you are using it to build. And the way you do that is by making building feel more rewarding than escaping. Not in theory, in your nervous system. So you start making progress visible. You start collecting proof. You start stacking wins. Not to brag, to train your brain. Your brain needs receipts, and when it sees receipts, it becomes loyal. The brain loves what works. If your system works, your brain will follow it. If your system is random, your brain will resist. Now, there is a myth that disciplined people do not care. That is false. Disciplined people care intensely. They just do not let their feelings drive the car. They treat feelings like weather. Present, real, not the boss. That is not coldness. That is maturity. And it is exactly what makes discipline feel like power. Because when you can act regardless of mood, you stop feeling like a hostage. You stop feeling like you need perfect conditions. You stop waiting for permission from your emotional state. And once you are not a hostage, your brain relaxes. Because you are in control. Control is calming. Lack of control is anxiety. Discipline is control. That is why your brain can learn to love it. Now here is the final trick. You stop aiming for discipline as a lifestyle. You aim for discipline as a self-respect loop. You do not do the thing because you are trying to become impressive. You do the thing because you refuse to abandon yourself. And abandonment is not only in relationships. Abandonment is when you keep making promises to yourself and breaking them. It is when you keep saying tomorrow and then living the same day again. The brain experiences self-abandonment as danger. That is why you feel restless. That is why you feel heavy. That is why you seek distraction. Your nervous system is trying to escape the feeling of being betrayed by your own inaction. So when you become disciplined, you are not just building success. You are repairing trust with yourself. And once your brain starts to feel that repair, discipline becomes less about pushing and more about coming home. You start craving the clean feeling of alignment. You start craving the quiet confidence of knowing you can execute. And you stop being impressed by motivation because you have something better: reliability. So if you want to trick your brain into loving discipline, stop trying to become a new person overnight. Start becoming someone your brain can trust. Make effort feel safe. Make progress feel immediate. Make the start feel light. Make the reward feel real. Reduce the debate. Protect your attention. And then watch what happens. You will not need to force discipline because your brain will start choosing it. Not because you became perfect, but because you built a loop that finally pays. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.